Hey folks, in this episode of the podcast, I get to sit down with Anton Lorimer and Alastair Jolly of SmugMug Films. This is TWiP. All right, gentlemen, welcome to this. I think this is the first time I've had a three-way conversation about the SmugMug Films project with both of the principals behind that project on the show. So welcome to both of you guys. How are you doing?
Thank you very much. Doing great.
All right. Yeah, so like I said in that intro there, this is all about just kind of getting under the covers with SmugMug Films. Like, what is it all about? Why is SmugMug Films here? How has it been doing? What's next? What's the latest film? We got to get all that done in the span of about, say, 20, 30 minutes. I think we can do it. We're all professionals here. Yeah. So, no Alastair, I want to start with you, man. You are, I'm going to let you tell your story, right? So explain kind of the origin story of your involvement with SmugMug Films and, why you continue to do it all these years later.
Sure. Well, I'm global brand manager at SmugMug, and both Anton and I have just celebrated 10 years at SmugMug, 10 years of making SmugMug Films, which is phenomenal. It all started, back 2012 with the SmugMug Films project. Anton had been creating other pieces of content before then, but we really wanted to get behind the reason about why photographers do what they do, not the how, it's not about the gear, it's not about how they do it, it's about why they do it. So we really wanted to take people on a journey of inspiration and motivation about these films. So 10 years we've been making them. We've made 37-ish films to date. Just recently launched a new one. We were looking at some of the stats the other day. We've been to 16 countries around the world. We've had obviously millions of views of those films, won many awards at film festivals around the world. We've lost 4 drones and counting, and we joke that we haven't lost them. We know exactly where they are.
They're taunting you because you can't reach them. You lost any in volcanoes or anything like that?
Anton, did we lose one in the latest volcano? I don't think we did.
No volcanoes. No, they're pretty good these days. It's hard to lose a drone these days.
Yeah. Anton, what about you? What's your SmugMug origin story, or your SmugMug Films origin story, and what keeps you in orbit around that project?
Yeah, I mean, I think SmugMug, just working for a company like SmugMug, kind of keeps me, inspired to work on films, period. I wasn't looking for a job when I took on this role at SmugMug. I just kind of fell in love with the people in the company. Somewhere along the way, we decided we'd create this series that really kind of celebrated photography. And we thought, best way to do that is kind of through the lens or, in the footsteps of the people that are creating amazing imagery. And that's what we did. We created this series of documentaries that really just tell the story of why these photographers do what they do, not so much the camera gear or how they do it. It's really about why, and we hope that kind of inspires others to do that. For me personally, because SmugMug wanted to do this, they kind of took the approach with me in a similar manner where, if you watch some of the films, you'll notice there's no real set format. They kind of let us create what we want to create and pieces that really fit the photographers and who they are. So I get tons of creative control, and that keeps it very interesting. Obviously, the photographers that I follow are amazing, and they're so interesting, and the places we get to go help for sure.
And what's the flow in there, Anton? Like the flow from sort of ideation of the project all the way, to first feet on the ground to shooting. Is it a collaborative experience with the photographer, or is
Absolutely.
it more directive where you're like, hey, we're going to Iceland and I got to find a photographer that knows how to shoot Icelandic type stuff? Like, how does it come to fruition?
It is, the photographers play a producer role in all of these, and I always tell them that we are kind of stepping into their world. When we select a photographer, we get to know them. We talk with them at length, kind of try to understand them beyond their photography, And so that when whatever we shoot and edit, it kind of fits their style. And of course, we start talking to them about their schedule and looking forward in the next few months about what they're shooting, where they'd like to shoot. And so it's collaborative from the start. And then, the other part is the narration or the voiceover. I interview them online. Then I go back and I just jot down tons of bullet points and talking points that I feel are relevant to the story. And so we kind of piece together the story beforehand, and then we just go out and shoot. And I let them do their thing, and I work around them. So it really is a documentary. We stage very little, if anything.
Yeah. And Alastair, what about you? Like, how do you engage in the project? Are you the one that's having the conversations and sourcing the initial photographers, or the photographers that you're going to bring into the project, or are they reaching out to you? Like, how do you and Anton balance the duties of building a film?
We both wear many hats and take on. We are a small team and take on many of those roles. And each film's slightly different. So the way we get to connect with these photographers is pretty unique in each occasion. Sometimes it's someone who's been introduced to us. Sometimes it's people we already know. Maybe some of our ambassadors. So it depends on how we know them initially, but yeah, a lot of time for me it's trying to produce what's going to happen on site, make sure we know where it's going to be, the locations, the timings, but with those early conversations, it's definitely a kind of three-way conversation between Anton and I and the photographer. As Anton mentioned, maybe finding out what's on their schedule already. Maybe with some of them, it's about, hey, we want to create this film. Here's a great opportunity to do something that you've been desperate to do. Maybe a passion project that you've wanted to try and do, and we could facilitate that through making this film. And with others, it's just, being on a journey of what they happen to be doing at that time. So one of the exciting things for me, and I think also for Anton, is that they are very different in each case. They all have their unique elements that need coordinated and managed, but ultimately Anton and I have the pleasure of spending some great quality time with the best photographers in the world.
Yeah. The TWiP audience is content creators for the most part, right? Or people that want to know how this stuff is made. What's the logistical flow between both of you? Are you collaborating in a Google Doc? Are you using some other software as a service app to sort of coordinate the shots and the destinations and travel and all that? What's the behind the scenes kind of look at how this stuff comes together?
Million pieces of paper? Is that what you want?
Emails, miles and miles of email.
Unfortunately, nowadays there is no one ring to rule them all. Where a lot of, as Anton said, the collaboration and the production is helped by the photographer. So a lot of the times we adopt the communication path which is the least resistant for the photographer. But yeah, certainly we have a lot of Google Docs. We have master sort of template docs for some of the things that can be standardized. But yeah, there's lots of pieces that go into it, from the communicating directly with the photographer, which can be unique in each case, Anton and I's communication and documents. And then we obviously have contracts and releases and that type of thing, which we've standardized and keep on our systems. And then there's various travel arrangements that need to be made, dinner plans that need to be made, all that type of thing. But yeah, I wish there was one ring to rule them all. And then Anton obviously has the whole other side of the coin, which is managing all the digital assets of the project. Maybe you can talk about that, Anton.
Yeah, Anton, I was asking about that. Like, once you've gathered everything, are you the guy that's putting it all together and doing all the edit, or do you take all that stuff that you've shot and created and recorded and you send it off to somebody to, do the Rumpelstiltskin and weave it into gold?
Yeah, I wish that were the case. No, I do from pre-production, production, and post. I pretty much do everything. So from writing the script to shooting and I guess directing. I'm shooting. It's usually a 2-person team, but I'm shooting and directing, and then on the back end, weaving that story together and putting it together in the most concise and efficient, entertaining way that I feel I can, and then beyond that, I'm doing the color, the sound design, music selection. So pretty much everything. And it's so different from one project to the next. Even the learning curve leading up to production, are we going to be shooting at elevation? What type of clothes do we need to bring? What kind of cameras are best going to, capture this artist who might be in like an ultralight airplane or shooting underwater? Every single one of them, even if it's just a fashion studio or something, how best to capture these photographers doing their thing and make it interesting and fresh and cinematic. So it's fun. I feel like I should have a template by now, but every one of these, I feel like I'm reinventing the wheel, but that keeps me inspired and it keeps it fun,
fresh.
For sure.
It keeps it fresh and fun, right? So what do you, when you're out there, you're out there and is there a set piece of gear or a set kit that you bring out with you on every job, or do you have a giant gear locker full of everything you could possibly need and you just kind of do an A-team sequence putting it all together before you go
No, it's a pretty small kit because most of the time I'm doing the shooting by myself, or I might have an assistant. Early on, I shot half of these completely by myself. So wherever I go, all of my gear has to fit on my back for the most part. I don't like checking in anything that I need that's essential to the shoot. So it has to fit in a backpack, and that dictates kind of the microphones and the cameras and the lenses we bring. And at this point, gear is quality is so good, right, that you can carry a whole studio on your back, fortunately. So it's pretty light. I usually, 2 cameras, one handheld kind of shoulder rig, and one on a gimbal. So I can go back and forth and get that longer, shallow depth of field, steady shot, or I can go to that kind of follow the photographer around on a gimbal shot, and I can go back and forth. It's like shooting a wedding. You have your telephoto and your wide angle camera,
Yeah.
A lot of our artists are always very surprised just how light and small and nimble we are as a team. When they watch the films that we produced in the past, it's hard to imagine that Anton's creating this incredible cinematography with as gear that we can literally carry on our backs. Go ahead.
No, I tell the photographers, be prepared to be very unimpressed when we show up.
Yeah, underwhelmed. But a lot of the times it gives us great opportunities, because we are so, light in gear and nimble. It's also not overwhelming for the photographers. It's not, we're not taking over their whole productions or their, creative process that they're doing. So I think there's a huge benefit to being small. And while, Anton's filming, there's always, perhaps myself behind carrying all the spare gear and, trying to carry all that while Anton's doing his work with the gimbals or the drones or that type of stuff. But pretty small and nimble is the best way to describe it, I think.
Now, are you guys both out there together when you're shooting, or Anton, are you out there on the ground while Alastair is cozy in his hotel room sipping Mai Tais? Like, how does it go?
If Alastair's there in the same area, yes. There are a few, like our latest film. Alastair didn't join me on that particular project, but most of the time Alastair's there, and yes, if he's in town, he's with me for sure.
Yeah. No Mai Tais for me, and with the latest film, unfortunately, COVID restrictions prevented me from being able to join Anton. But they get our pound of flesh from both of us when we're on sets. And Anton described it there as a wedding, and it kind of, in many instances, feels like that. You have to react to the situation, deal with the weather, the light, the conditions, whatever's happening. In many ways, the same as a wedding photographer has to get all the various different shots in different locations without having control to the nth degree. You have to let the photographer or the subject that we're filming be able to do their thing without us creating or staging too much of it. We really do want to document what they're doing.
Yeah. Before we end this, I really want to talk about the latest film that was just released. Was like a week and a half, 2 weeks ago, I think it was. As they listened to this, the first people. Take me through that, right? You know, maybe Anton, you can start with it, right? The challenges of, well, take us through the film, introduce the film, and you know, I'll link to it in the description for this. But you know, take us in behind the scenes of a SmugMug film like that.
Yeah, so our latest SmugMug Films is called Where the Fire Is, with a photographer named Mike Mezuel. He's from Texas. He's someone that was on our radar for some time. He takes these beautiful landscape photos. Primarily, he's really well known for his storm photography, and it's just beautiful. He's also into volcanoes big time. And you know, we were talking with him about, hey, what can we do with you? We didn't have anything specific planned. We thought, you know, can we go storm chasing with you? What's on your agenda? He kept mentioning the Fuego Volcano, which is the world's most active volcano actually in Guatemala. And we thought, and he showed me photos of it. It's very classic looking stratocone volcano, I believe is the technical term, but it's that triangle shaped volcano that you would picture if you drew one as a kid. This was the volcano that you drew, you know. Really pretty, erupts every 20 to 30 minutes. And it's in Guatemala, not super far away. And so he was going, and we kind of just wrote that down as the plan. And we went out and shot it in December. And like most of these films that have their learning curve, one of the big ones with Guatemala was our base camp was going to be at like 11,000 feet, and we'll be working at 12,000+ feet. So elevation was, you know, a difficult, something that we had to contend with. But it was cold, it was windy, we had to do a lot of hiking, just uncomfortable situations, but beautiful backdrop. Amazing guy.
2.5 miles high, man. Wow, that's crazy.
Yeah. If you're in Denver and you'd climb a flight of stairs, you can feel it. At 11,000 feet, and we're hiking just straight up the sides of this volcano. I mean, it got to a point where it was like 20 feet, stop, breathe, rest, walk, hike another 20 feet. And this was all gear, you know? Mm-hmm. So it was tiring at like 4 o'clock in the morning, you know, trying to get up there before the sun rises and stuff. So, super tiring, but I'm not complaining. I mean, it's amazing.
Yeah.
So,
but the hypoxia is real up there, right? I mean, you're Denver, the mile high city is 5,280 feet high, right? So you're almost 3 times that, right? You're just a human. Yeah. And we need oxygen.
And it's, and the elevation sickness is so elusive, depending on who you are and what day it was. You may feel it, you may not. Even, you know, our guide that first day didn't go up because he was feeling elevation sickness, and he's from Guatemala at these elevations. So it's just kind of this elusive thing that if you were lucky enough to kind of fight through it that particular day, then, you know, no problem. But super just amazing experience. Great backdrop. Amazing people down there in Guatemala. Super beautiful place, amazing people. So just very excited to release this film.
Yeah. Alastair, what about you? Like your experiences and sort of thoughts around this latest film release?
Well, when you hear Anton describing what he had to go through, him and Mike, now you know why I played the COVID restrictions card. I can't make it, unfortunately.
I understand.
I'd rather stay here and breathe and not have not have altitude sickness here in Scotland. But I mean, obviously super disappointed that I couldn't join the team there to do it. But working with Mike has been, so much fun. We have admired his, storm photography, his landscape photography for many, many years, and that was why he was kind of on our radar to do a film. But to take it to this, this level, no pun intended, but to take it to this level where we're making a film about him on this journey, which, had its trials and tribulations, doesn't necessarily go to plan. That kind of story is told in the film. It's just been so much fun, and great to work with Mike and release the film. We released the film, as you say, a couple of weeks ago on World Photography Day as part of our celebrations of World Photography Day here at SmugMug, and it has been so well received. The engagement we're getting on our social channels, on YouTube, with the film, people are really connecting with this story, talking about what it means to them, seeing the world this way through Mike's eyes, and having the opportunity to experience something something like that through our film, those comments are exactly the reason why we make these films. We want people to have that emotional connection with the subject matter and with the artist, and hopefully experience things that they either want to go try, they may never be able to, but they see it through these films, and just be motivated to pick up the camera. That's kind of why we do it.
Yeah, thank you for saying that, because that was one of my questions, was what is the sort of corporate motivation for creating these films, right? Is it altruistic, where you just want to give back to the photographers and empower and inspire photographers to go out and do these kinds of things, or what, right? And it sounds like you answered. Anton, do you have any further perspective on that?
No, I completely agree. I think this is really to align ourselves with a group of people that are out there doing these amazing things, and that's why we want to get to the core of why they do it. I think that's what SmugMug's about. We don't mention the product at all in these videos, and that was a big thing when we started to create these. We wanted them to solely be about the photographer, and yeah, that's really why we do it. So,
love that. So, just to wrap up. I always want to kind of know I'm always about the behind the scenes, right? So in this situation with this particular series of films, what were the major learnings, and from both perspectives, from a production and an actual execution perspective, what major learnings have revealed themselves over the past, say, 5 years or so in making these films, other than, of course, both of your experiences increasing, over time? Have there been any surprising things that have come out that you're like, I didn't know this when we started, now we know?
Well, that's a tough
goodness.
one.
I think for me, for me, the biggest takeaway is just, what incredible imagery and storytelling we're able to do with having Anton on the team. A very small team that makes these films that I don't think many people realize just how small the team is behind these films, and just the pleasure of working with these incredible photographers. It excites Anton and I on a daily basis, but it has its challenges. One of the simple challenges is there are so many incredible creatives in the world. We have to find the right one. We have to find the right opportunity, and that is challenging in many ways. Is finding the people, the opportunities, and the timing. Yeah,
love it. All right, let's wrap up. Anton, I'll give you the last word here, because this is This Week in Photo, and of course people want to know what you're shooting with, right? So what is the bag that you bring on these crazy adventures? What's in it? What's in that bag?
It's a pretty simple bag. It's I'm shooting with the Sony A7S III, which is kind of the more of the video dedicated mirrorless that Sony puts out right now. Like I said, just about every camera out there is so good though. So it just kind of depends on what you have in your hand, and you have a handful of lenses that you have. I think I have focal lengths from everything from about 16 millimeter to, actually in my bag, it's only the 70 millimeter. Yeah. I don't even have a 70 to 200 in my bag right now anymore. I just end up shooting everything within 16 to 70 millimeter these days.
Wow.
Yeah. Though, depending on the project, I may rent the 70 to 200. I have the DJI Mavic drone and a gimbal, some wireless audio gear. Well, that's pretty much it.
Wow. Run and gun. Yeah. And what are you editing with post-production wise? Final Cut,
Premiere Pro at the moment, though I'm hearing such good things out of DaVinci Resolve. A lot of people I know are using that now, and it's so slick and fast on the new Macs that I'm going to give it a try. So
yeah, really cool.
Yeah.
All right, guys. We'll leave it right there. Any final words, Anton or Alastair, that you want to throw out there to the folks that are big fans of SmugMug Films and can't wait for the next one? You want to foreshadow the next one or anything?
Well, the big final word has to be: please go watch the latest film with Mike Mageau. Where the Fire Is. Please go check that out. I'm sure Frederick will put the links in the description below. And of course, we'd love to see your comments on that film. That would be a real blast for us if you go watch that. And then, we're always working on several projects at one time. So we keep our cards fairly close to our chest because things can change at such last minute that until we have it in the can, nothing is completely certain. But some very exciting things coming up this year for sure.
Very cool.
Absolutely. Yeah.
All right. We'll leave it right there, gentlemen. Thank you for coming on. I know you guys are literally in the middle of packing to go on another one of these crazy adventures.
Right.
So thank you for pressing the pause button to allow me to chat with you. Appreciate it. And congratulations on all these films. They're amazing.
Thanks, Frederick.
And
we appreciate it. Thank you for having us.
No, absolutely. I think it's important that people know about these films because there's a ton of them. You guys have created an incredible body of work that's out there, and it's just a treat that photographers can just go sit there and binge. What would you say? How many other, Alastair? 37?
37, yeah.
And, for all the content creators, I think it's a testament to just being able to, you can create quite a bit with a little amount of gear, a small amount of gear, and not that many people. I mean, one person can create a series like this, honestly. So, it's kind of out there for the taking. Just,
do
you gotta be passionate about it.
Just do it, right? Yeah, just get out there. Yeah, and I think that's a really good point, Anton. If people, when they start, if you haven't seen SmugMug Films before and you go look at these films, look at them through the lens of these films are created largely by a 1-2 punch 2-man crew, right? And shot with a 1-man crew for the most part, and you can do it too, right? And that's the whole point of it. You don't have to rely on, well, if I had this thing, I could do it, or if I had that thing, I could create films like this. You probably can now with the stuff that you already have in your bag.
Listen, 10 years ago when we started, we would have loved to have had the quality of an iPhone 10 years ago. So you could you can create this stuff straight from some very, very minimal technology. And we have to keep developing as technology improves. So get out there and do it just with whatever gear you have.
Yep, absolutely. All right, we'll leave it right there. What's the location online for folks? Well, of course, we'll link to the SmugMug Films and the latest film in the description in the blog post for this episode. But what's the route? What's the home for everything?
Two places you can go to see these. You can go to smugmug.com/films, and you'll see not just the films, but in many cases you'll see extra content as well, blog posts, interviews, some fantastic galleries with the artists. Or of course you can go to our YouTube page, SmugMug Films, and you'll see all the content on that YouTube channel.
Excellent. All right, guys. Well, thanks for coming on. Safe travels. Can't wait to see what's next out of you. Yeah, we'll leave it right there.
Thanks, Frederick.
Sounds good. Thank you.
All right, guys. Take care. This is TWiP.